The visa exemption program allows persons requiring a visa to enter the BVI without a visa once they already have a UK, USA, or Canadian visa.
This initiative was in fact one of the recommendations that was discussed and came out as a result of the McKinsey study and the subcommittees that had been established as a result of those recommendations as government seeks to implement the recommendations. And one of the things that we recognize is that in terms of our local visa policy, there are a number of countries that are required to have a visa to come to the Virgin Islands. In doing so, they have to go through a process where perhaps they have to get the background checks, etc., and all that is required for that. We thought that it would further facilitate or attract the business environment, the investment environment, if we were to engage in a policy that sought to utilize an existing policy, which is the use of persons who have the US, UK, and Canada visa. Essentially, those persons would have gone through a process that we are satisfied would be able to not replace, but to be able to facilitate those persons coming to the Virgin Islands. Now, it's not a broad blanket. It's just for those countries that required a visa to come to the BVI. So now we're talking about those persons who have a US, UK, and Canada visa. They will be allowed to come to the Virgin Islands on the basis that they have those visas. Those visas would have had to have been 6 months old, and the visits would have had to be for a period of 6 months.
Newly appointed Acting Chief Immigration Officer Geraldine Ritter-Freeman said the visa exemption program is part of the labor and immigration reform efforts to further streamline entry into the BVI and facilitate economic growth for the territory. The visa exemption allows entry for business, tourism, and other related matters except work. And beginning September 1st, changes made to the immigration and passport regulations will allow the Chief Immigration Officer to grant a permit for persons to remain in the territory for the purpose of seeking employment.
In terms of the immigration and passport ordinance, it says if you're changing jobs or you're changing status, essentially what you would have to exit the country and you'd have to return with a new status. And in those cases, or if you're residing in the territory and you want to now seek employment in the territory, again, that is a change of status. So the policy was to ask persons to exit the territory and to return on their new status. With this new policy that we've established that we're going to force on September 1, essentially the existing policy remains for persons who have been here for under 5 years. Persons who have been here for 5 years and more, they would not have to leave the territory. They'll be allowed to stay in the territory. They'll be granted a permit while seeking employment. However, it will cost them $250, a minimal fee of $250. When you think about the costs for persons to exit the country, establish themselves somewhere, to return, in some cases leaving property and family behind, we thought that this policy would have definitely been one that would that those persons who have had that experience would find very beneficial.
Persons who are granted permission to stay in the BVI while changing jobs will be given a period of 90 days to seek employment in the first instance. The Chief Immigration Officer will look at each case to determine whether persons can benefit from the new policies.